They say Washington, D.C. is the beating heart of America, a city of power, monuments, and history, a place where the marble gleams under floodlights, where tourists snap photos of the Lincoln Memorial, and where politicians move through gilded halls making decisions that ripple across the world. But if you have ever walked those same streets at night, you know the Capitol has another face. When the crowds are gone and the city falls into silence, shadows stretch across monuments, the echo of footsteps follows you down empty corridors, and a cold wind whispers through alleys that have seen centuries of secrets. Washington, D.C. is more than a seat of government. It is a city built on swampland, where the ground itself has swallowed lives, and where dark stories have festered just beneath the marble. History books like to show you the triumphs, the speeches, the memorials, the moments etched into American memory. But what they do not show you are the mysteries, the disappearances, the ghosts, the murders, the strange legends that still haunt this city. Some say the Capitol is cursed. Others whisper it was designed with symbols that channel something ancient and sinister. Whatever you believe, one thing is certain: Washington, D.C. holds secrets that most will never know. Tonight, we are going to peel back the layers of this city, past the polished monuments, and straight into its hidden darkness. We will uncover the unsolved mysteries history books ignore, stories that leave behind only questions, and a lingering chill. So if you are ready, lock your doors, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself, because once you hear these stories, you will never look at America's capital the same way again. And before we begin, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell. Every week, we bring you more dark legends, unsolved mysteries, and chilling tales. Trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming next. Now, let us step into the shadows of Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. did not rise from the earth as a shining capital. It was carved out of swampland, a stretch of marshes and forests that once held far more shadows than monuments. In the 18th century, when George Washington selected the site for the new capital, many whispered it was a cursed choice. The land was treacherous. Humid summers brought waves of disease. Winters froze the ground solid, and the thick fogs that rolled from the Potomac made the city seem more ghostly than glorious. And yet it was here that America's leaders dreamed of raising a city unlike any other, a city of order, symbols, and secrets. The streets were laid out by Pierre Charles L'Enfant, and his design was no accident. Masonic symbols can be traced in the very bones of the city: pentagrams, compasses, owls, hidden in the grid. Some argue this was mere coincidence. Others claim it was deliberate, a way to lock hidden power into the streets themselves. Walk the Capitol long enough with a map in hand, and you will see shapes no ordinary city should hold. Above ground, D.C. is a city of white marble and proud facades. But beneath it, another city stretches tunnels, catacombs, abandoned subway stations, and forgotten chambers. Beneath the Capitol building alone lies a labyrinth of passageways. Some were built for safety, others for convenience, but over centuries, stories have emerged of things far stranger lurking in the dark. Some guards whisper of footsteps echoing when no one is there. Others refuse to patrol alone. Then there is the White House, a symbol of democracy by day, but by night, many say it is alive with ghosts. Abraham Lincoln's spirit is the most famous, reported by presidents, prime ministers, and even first ladies. But his is only one of many restless souls said to walk its halls. The thing about Washington is this: it is a city where power and death walk hand in hand. Leaders rise, leaders fall, and their shadows linger. The monuments are not just memorials, they are graves, reminders of blood spilled, often under mysterious circumstances. From political assassinations to sudden disappearances, Washington's soil is soaked with questions that never found answers. And the deeper you look, the more unsettling it becomes. Was this city designed as a beacon, or a warning, a symbol of unity, or a mask for something darker? As we move forward, keep this in mind: Washington, D.C. is not just a backdrop to American history. It is a stage one that has seen secrets, lies, and horrors play out in silence, hidden behind marble facades. Because behind every monument, there is a shadow, And behind every shadow there is a story waiting to be told. Mystery number 1. The disappearance of Congressman Hale Boggs. October 16, 1972. A twin-engine Cessna 310 lifts off from Anchorage, Alaska into the cold northern sky. On board are 4 men: Congressman Nick Begich, political aide Russell Brown, pilot Don Johns, and one of the most powerful politicians in Washington House Majority Leader Hale Boggs. The flight is routine. The weather, while brisk, is manageable. They are headed for a campaign stop in Juneau. But somewhere in the endless wilderness of Alaska, the plane vanishes. No distress signal. No wreckage. No trace of the men on board. For weeks, one of the largest search efforts in U.S. history sweeps across 325,000 square miles of rugged terrain. Planes, helicopters, and thousands of searchers comb the forests, rivers, and mountains. And yet, nothing. To this day, no wreckage has ever been found. At first glance, it seems like a tragic accident, the kind of disappearance not uncommon in the vast Alaskan wilderness, but the story of Hale Boggs is anything but ordinary. Boggs was not just another congressman. He was the majority leader of the House, one of the most influential men in Washington. He was also one of the few public officials to openly challenge the findings of the Warren Commission, the group tasked with investigating the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Boggs himself had been on that commission. He had read the evidence, seen the files, and spoken to the witnesses, and what he found troubled him deeply. In speeches leading up to his disappearance, Boggs began to break ranks. He criticized J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI for what he called illegal wiretapping and abuse of power. He questioned the commission's conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. He hinted carefully but clearly that there were things about JFK's death that the American people had not been told. And then, suddenly, he was gone. Conspiracy theorists argue that Boggs knew too much, that he had become a liability, that his disappearance was no accident, but a carefully orchestrated removal. After all, how could a modern airplane vanish without a trace, even after the largest search of its kind? Some point to the fact that the official search was cut short after 39 days despite no evidence of wreckage. Others note that Don Johns, the pilot, had previously been investigated for reckless flying. Was the crash inevitable, or was it staged? Rumors swirl of classified files, destroyed evidence, and witnesses silenced. Even Boggs' daughter, journalist Cokie Roberts, admitted that her family lived with questions they knew would never be answered. What is even stranger is how quickly the story faded. For a House Majority Leader to vanish should have shaken the nation to its core. But in the fog of Watergate, Vietnam, and political upheaval, Boggs became just another name lost to history. And yet, in Washington, D.C., whispers linger. Some say Boggs was silenced because he was preparing to go public with secrets about the Kennedy assassination. Others claim he had uncovered illegal surveillance at the highest levels of government. The truth may lie buried beneath the snow and ice of Alaska, or buried in files locked deep within the archives of Washington. But one thing is certain: Hale Boggs boarded a plane in 1972 and was never seen again. His disappearance remains one of America's great unsolved mysteries, one that history books mention only in passing, carefully avoiding the questions that still haunt it. And perhaps the real question is not what happened in the skies over Alaska, but why the halls of Washington remain so silent about the man who vanished. Mystery number 2. The Ghosts of the Capitol Building. The United States Capitol is supposed to represent democracy, stability, and strength. Its great white dome gleams like a beacon across the city, visible for miles, a reminder of the nation's endurance. By day, tourists wander its marble halls, senators and representatives hurry through chambers, and history seems alive in the polished stone. But by night, when the halls grow silent, the Capitol becomes something else entirely. Guards whisper of footsteps echoing in empty corridors, of voices murmuring behind locked doors, of shadows that do not belong to the living. The Capitol is older than most realize. Construction began in 1793, and from the very start, death seemed to be woven into its foundations. Workers died in accidents, slaves labored and perished in its construction, and the building itself was set ablaze by British forces during the War of 1812. It has seen violence, assassination attempts, riots, and sudden deaths, and the dead, some say, never left. One of the oldest legends tells of the Headless Man. Night guards claim to have seen him wandering the rotunda, a spectral figure in 19th century clothing carrying a glowing lantern, but his head is missing. The story dates back to a stonemason who was decapitated during construction, his head crushed by a falling stone. Since then, the headless apparition has appeared from time to time, a silent reminder of the capital's bloody beginnings. Even more chilling is the legend of the Demon Cat. For nearly 2 centuries, security officers, janitors, and even senators have whispered about a black cat that prowls the building at night. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary stray, but then, they say, it grows in size until it becomes as large as a tiger, with glowing red eyes, and whenever the demon cat appears, tragedy soon follows. It was reportedly seen before the assassinations of both Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy, and even before the stock market crash of 1929. Some guards swear they have fired at it, only for the bullets to pass through as the beast vanishes into thin air. There are other ghosts, too. John Quincy Adams, the 6th President of the United States, collapsed of a stroke in the Capitol in 1848. His body was carried out, but some swear his voice still echoes through the chamber where he fell. Workers late at night report hearing his distinctive cough, the shuffle of his shoes, or even the faint sound of him rising to speak as he once did. During the Civil War, the Capitol was converted into a barracks and hospital. Hundreds of soldiers died within its walls. Their moans, some say, still seep through the stone at night. Security guards have described the scent of blood and gunpowder rising suddenly in empty rooms, as if the war never truly ended. And then, there are the shadows figures, glimpsed at the corner of vision, standing silently in hallways before disappearing. Some guards refuse to patrol alone, especially near the crypt beneath the rotunda, where George Washington's body was once intended to rest. Though his remains were never placed there, many believe the unfinished tomb has become a doorway, and that something else walks through. The Capitol's legends are so numerous that even officials have acknowledged them. Over the years, countless guards have resigned, claiming the building is cursed. Few of these stories make it into history books, yet they circulate quietly among those who work the night shift. Ask them what they have seen, and some will smile nervously, shake their heads, and walk away. Others will whisper the same chilling words. This place is alive with the dead. By day, the Capitol is the heart of American democracy. By night, it is a mausoleum where the past refuses to rest. And if you ever find yourself alone in its marble halls after dark, listen closely. You may hear footsteps approaching, but when you turn, there will be no one there. Mystery number 3. The murder of Mary Pinchot Meyer. Georgetown is one of Washington's most elegant neighborhoods. Its cobblestone streets lined with ivy-draped townhouses, its riverfront bustling with life. But behind the charm, Georgetown has always carried shadows, and none is darker than the unsolved murder of Mary Pinchot Meyer. It was October 12, 1964. Mary, a painter, a socialite, and the ex-wife of a high-ranking CIA official, was taking her daily walk along the C&O Canal. She was well known in Washington circles, intelligent, artistic, outspoken. More importantly, she had been close, very close, to President John F. Kennedy. Many whispered of a romance, one that gave her access to his most private thoughts. That afternoon, 2 shots rang out across the towpath. Witnesses heard her scream, followed by silence. When help arrived, Mary was lying on the ground, her body riddled with bullets. She was dead within minutes. Police quickly arrested a black laborer named Ray Crump, who happened to be in the area. But the case fell apart almost immediately. There was no gun, no physical evidence linking him to the crime. Witnesses described the killer as taller, heavier, wearing different clothes. In the end, Crump was acquitted. The murder, officially, remains unsolved. But the questions did not stop with her death. Mary was not just another victim. She was deeply connected to the most powerful people in Washington. Her former husband, Cord Meyer, had been a top official in the CIA. Her friends included high-ranking politicians and journalists. And then there was her alleged relationship with JFK. A relationship she had confided to a few close friends, one that suggested she knew things about the president, his politics, and perhaps even his enemies. The most disturbing detail emerged after her death. Mary kept a diary, a personal journal filled, some say, with secrets about her affair with Kennedy and her suspicions surrounding his assassination less than a year earlier. After her murder, the diary vanished. According to one account, it was found by journalist James Truitt, who turned it over to Mary's brother-in-law. That man was none other than James Jesus Angleton, the CIA's chief of counterintelligence. Angleton allegedly admitted later that he burned the diary. Why? He claimed it was to protect her privacy. But others believe it contained details far too dangerous to ever see the light of day, details about Kennedy, about the CIA, about forces that shaped the events of the early 1960s. Mary's friends remained unconvinced by the official story. One of them, writer Timothy Leary, claimed Mary had told him she believed JFK was assassinated by powerful elements within the government itself. Was she silenced for knowing too much? Did her diary contain proof of what she feared? Or was her murder simply a random act of violence on an unlucky afternoon? The case file has gathered dust for decades, never closed, never solved. The C&O Canal towpath, where Mary took her last walk, is today a peaceful trail where joggers and tourists pass without a second thought. But if you stop in the quiet and listen, you might feel the weight of what happened there. The abrupt end of a woman who may have held answers the world was never meant to hear. And in the silence, the question lingers: who killed Mary Pinchot Meyer? A stranger in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or someone who needed her silenced before she revealed what she knew? Mystery number 4. The vanishing of the Capitol tunnel worker. Beneath Washington, D.C., hidden from the tourists who flood its monuments, lies a secret world. A labyrinth of tunnels stretches for miles under the Capitol, the Library of Congress, and even the White House. Some are well known: the small trains that carry senators from their offices to the Capitol, the maintenance tunnels lined with pipes and wires. But others are sealed off, unmarked on maps, their entrances bricked over or left to rot in silence. And with those tunnels come stories that few in power ever acknowledge. One of the most enduring legends is that of the vanished tunnel worker. The tale begins in the 1920s, when the underground network was still expanding. Construction crews spent long hours in the sweltering dark, carving new passageways, laying stone, pouring concrete. Among them was a man named Joseph, a laborer known for his long shifts and his quiet manner. He had worked on the tunnels for months without incident, until one night he did not come back. The story goes that Joseph had been sent alone to check a section of tunnel near the Capitol's crypt. Hours passed, and when he did not return, a supervisor went to look for him. The lantern he carried was found lying on the ground, still burning. His tools were there too, neatly arranged, but of Joseph there was no trace. Search parties combed the area, but the tunnel ended in a dead wall. There was nowhere to go. And yet, the man was gone. At first, officials dismissed the disappearance as an accident. Maybe Joseph had wandered off. Maybe he had quit his job and left the city. But whispers spread quickly among the workers. Some said they heard him screaming in the dark that night, his voice echoing through the stone. Others swore they saw a shadow move against the lantern light. A figure far too tall to be human, vanishing just as quickly as it appeared. The incident was quietly buried, filed away as just another disappearance in a city full of them. But over the years, guards and maintenance workers have claimed strange things in that same section of tunnel. Cold spots where the air turns icy in the middle of summer. Footsteps that follow in perfect rhythm, though no one is there. Tools that vanish and reappear in places no one left them. And sometimes, they say, the faint glow of a lantern sways at the end of the corridor, always just out of reach. Some insist Joseph fell into one of the many undocumented chambers that honeycomb the ground beneath D.C. Forgotten escape routes, Masonic vaults, perhaps even burial chambers sealed away before the Capitol was finished. Others believe the tunnels themselves are cursed, their design tied to rituals and symbols long hidden in plain sight on the city streets above. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: Joseph was never seen again. Today, The story survives only in whispers among night shift staff, passed down like a warning. They say if you hear the scrape of metal on stone, if you feel the cold breath of air rising from the earth, do not follow it. Don't wander alone. And if you see the glow of a lantern in the distance, turn back. Because in those tunnels, the living are not always alone, and some who enter never find their way out again. Mystery number 5, the mystery of the Octagon House. Not far from the White House, at the corner of 18th Street and New York Avenue, stands a peculiar old mansion with a name that does not quite fit, the Octagon House. Despite its name, it is not perfectly octagonal, more of a strange, angular shape, with sharp corners and unsettling symmetry. Built in 1801 for Colonel John Taylor III, one of the wealthiest men in Virginia, the house was meant to be a symbol of power and prestige, but from the very beginning, its walls seemed to trap something else: sorrow, violence, and restless spirits. The Octagon House is often called one of the most haunted buildings in Washington, D.C., and for good reason. Its history is soaked in tragedy. One of the most enduring legends tells of the Taylor daughters, young women raised in privilege within the mansion's grand halls. According to the tale, one daughter fell in love with a man her father disapproved of. When she defied him, he chased her up the winding staircase in a rage. In her attempt to flee, she slipped and fell to her death. The sound of her final scream, they say, still echoes on stormy nights. Another version of this story tells of a second daughter meeting the same fate on the same staircase, her body shattering on the marble floor. Whether it was one or both, the house became a tomb for the dreams of the Taylor family. Visitors and staff have reported hearing footsteps on the staircase when no one is there, and many claim to have seen the apparition of a young woman, pale and silent, replaying her fatal climb. Some say they have heard her fall, the thud of her body hitting the floor, only to find the house empty when they rush to investigate. But the tragedies did not end there. During the War of 1812, when the British set fire to the White House, President James Madison and his wife Dolly briefly took refuge in the Octagon House. For a time, it became a shadow government headquarters, its rooms filled with hurried meetings and anxious whispers as the city smoldered. The weight of that dark chapter seems to have clung to the house ever since. Servants who lived in the house also told of strange happenings, doors slamming on their own, candles blowing out, though no wind stirred, the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. And in the basement, where enslaved people were kept, the atmosphere is said to be unbearable. Visitors today often describe overwhelming dread when they step into those lower chambers, as if the suffering of those who once lived and died there refuses to fade. One of the eeriest tales involves the sound of bells ringing in the middle of the night. In the 1800s, bells were used to summon servants to the family's rooms. But decades after the house was abandoned, the bells continued to ring sometimes in the dead of winter, when the house stood completely empty. Workers who came to renovate the building swore they heard the bells, even though the ropes had been cut years earlier. The Octagon House has been preserved as a museum, its elegant rooms open to the public. Yet those who work there after hours admit that the air is never quite still. Some won't go near the staircase alone. Others avoid the basement entirely. And nearly all agree, the house is alive with something more than history. They say if you stand at the bottom of the stairs and wait in silence, you might catch the flicker of movement above. A shadow gliding past the landing. A figure in white ascending toward her doom again and again, forever trapped in the moment her life ended. The Octagon House was meant to be a monument to wealth and power. Instead, it became a monument to tragedy. And to this day, the city whispers of the screams that never stopped echoing in its halls. Mystery number 6. The Dupont Circle Disappearances. Dupont Circle is today one of Washington, D.C.'s liveliest neighborhoods, a place of art galleries, bookstores, embassies, and coffee shops, where the streets buzz late into the night. But beneath its charm lies a history that many residents prefer not to talk about, a history filled with strange vanishings that have haunted the area for decades. The first stories date back to the 1940s, when Dupont Circle was a quieter district, its once grand mansions falling into disrepair. Police records tell of young men who were last seen near the circle, only to disappear without a trace. The cases never connected, never solved, but always eerily similar. People seen walking home, people seen waiting at the fountain, people stepping into the shadows of the narrow streets and then gone. In the 1970s, when Dupont became a hub for counterculture, the stories began again. College students, artists, wanderers. Some left their apartments late at night and never came back. Families reported them missing, police opened files, but no bodies were found, no evidence surfaced. The disappearances became urban legend, a whispered warning. Do not linger too long in Dupont after dark. Local lore ties the vanishings to the old underground passages rumored to run beneath the neighborhood. In the early 1900s, a streetcar tunnel was built under Dupont Circle, a massive curved tunnel meant to ease congestion above. By the 1960s, it was abandoned, left dark, and forgotten. For years, it sat sealed, its entrances padlocked, its tunnels filling with shadows. Some said the missing were dragged into those tunnels, taken by someone or something that used the forgotten spaces as hunting ground. Homeless men who sought shelter in the tunnels told stories of strange sounds, footsteps pacing behind them, low whispers in the dark, the sound of water dripping even on dry nights. A few swore they saw figures moving at the far end of the tunnel, only for those figures to vanish when light was shown on them. Even today, as part of the tunnel has been repurposed into an art space, workers report unease. Lights flicker for no reason. Tools go missing. And at night, the security guards claim the silence is never complete. They hear breathing, soft and steady, in places where no one stands. The police files on the Dupont disappearances remain unsolved. Many were written off as runaways, others as unsolved homicides. But the number of cases, all centered on the same blocks, all following the same patterns, is too many to dismiss. Some believe a predator stalked Dupont Circle for decades. One clever enough to hide evidence. One who knew the underground better than anyone else. Others believe the tunnels themselves are cursed, tied to the same strange forces that shape the city's hidden geometry. Whatever the truth, the disappearances left scars that still haunt the community. If you visit Dupont Circle at night, you will see people gathered at the fountain, laughing, talking, living their lives. But every so often, if you look closely, you will notice the unease. A person glancing over their shoulder, a friend hurrying another along, and if you walk too close to the old tunnel entrance, where rusted gates seal the way down, you might feel the weight of the darkness pressing from below, as if something down there remembers the lives it already claimed, and waits patiently for more. Mystery number 7, the Demon Cat of D.C. Of all the legends that haunt Washington, none is whispered with more unease than the tale of the Demon Cat. Unlike other ghosts bound to one building or one tragedy, the Demon Cat is said to roam the very heart of the capital, appearing when death, disaster, or political upheaval is near. The first reports trace back to the 1800s, when guards in the Capitol's basement claimed they were stalked by a small black cat. At first it seemed harmless, even ordinary, darting in and out of shadows like a stray, but when the men approached, the cat grew swelling to the size of a lion, its eyes glowing like coals in the dark. Some guards swore it lunged at them, only to vanish just before impact, leaving nothing but claw marks on the floor and a cold draft in the air. Over time, the cat became a harbinger. Stories tell that it appeared before the assassination of President Lincoln, prowling the Capitol's halls in silence. Decades later, it was seen again in the days leading up to the 1929 stock market crash, when America tumbled into despair. During World War II, guards reported glimpses of its shadowy form as the nation braced for conflict, and before President Kennedy's assassination, one Capitol policeman claimed the demon cat crossed his path in the crypt beneath the rotunda, vanishing before his very eyes. The legend has only grown darker with each retelling. Some say the cat is not a ghost at all, but something far older, a demon bound to the city, feeding on tragedy, appearing only when blood is about to be spilled. Others claim it is the spirit of the animals once kept in the Capitol's basement, when it served as a food storage area, twisted over centuries into something monstrous. What makes the story chilling is not just the history, but the persistence. As recently as the 1990s, Capitol police officers reported hearing the echo of a cat's hiss in the tunnels, though no living creature was found. A few guards still whisper about paw prints that appear suddenly in the dust, only to vanish halfway down the hall. And perhaps most unsettling are the accounts that describe the cat watching from the shadows, intelligent, waiting. They say if you lock eyes with it, you will be struck with an overwhelming dread, as though you are glimpsing not just an animal but an omen. Washington has seen its share of death and disaster, and each time, someone claims the demon cat was there first. Skeptics laugh it off as myth, a story invented by bored guards working the graveyard shift. But the Capitol is a place steeped in ritual, in secrecy, in strange architecture, designed with purpose. What if the cat is more than a story? What if it is the city's silent witness, a beast that marks the coming of tragedy again and again? So if you ever find yourself walking the Capitol's halls late at night, and you hear the faint pad of paws behind you, do not turn around, because if the demon cat has found you, it might not just be watching the city's fate, it might be watching yours. Washington, D.C. is a city of light by day, but by night it becomes something else, entirely a place where every monument casts a shadow, and every shadow hides a story. The disappearance of Hale Boggs, the ghosts of the Capitol, the silenced voice of Mary Pinchot Meyer, the tunnel worker who never came back, the cursed Octagon House, the vanishings around Dupont Circle, and the ominous demon cat. Each of these tales might seem separate, scattered through time, like broken pieces of history. Yet when you bring them together, a darker pattern begins to emerge. This city was built with intention, its streets mapped like a code, its monuments raised as symbols, its foundations dug into earth that has swallowed countless lives. The architects may have claimed order and reason, but what they left behind feels closer to ritual. And in that ritual, secrets thrive. Consider it. Powerful voices vanish without explanation. Those who dare to question are silenced. Blood-stained staircases, towpaths, and forgotten corridors, but official reports dismiss them as accidents, coincidences, random violence. Yet the whispers persist. Guards tell of footsteps in empty halls. Locals warn of things waiting beneath the streets. Legends insist that omens stalk the Capitol itself, announcing each national tragedy with glowing eyes. Perhaps Washington is more than a capital. Perhaps it is a stage, a theater where the living play their parts while the dead refuse to leave the wings. Or perhaps it is a trap, a city designed to channel power, but one that feeds on those who stray too close to its hidden core. Ask yourself, why are so many of these mysteries quietly buried, their details glossed over, their files sealed away? Why does a city that celebrates its history seem so eager to erase the darker parts of its past? The answer may be simple, or it may be terrifying. Because maybe those in power know something the rest of us do not. Maybe the shadows are not just shadows, but guardians of secrets too dangerous to reveal. And so the stories continue, whispered in tunnels, echoed on staircases, etched into the silence of the night. Some are dismissed as legend, others as conspiracy, but they all share one truth. Washington, D.C. is a city built on mystery, and mystery does not die. It waits. It lingers. It feeds. So the next time you see the Capitol's dome shining white against the night sky, remember what lies beneath. Remember the voices that were silenced, the lives that were lost, the eyes glowing in the darkness. And remember this, the history books may tell you one story, but the city itself tells another. Washington, D.C. wears two faces. One is polished marble, white columns and noble words etched in stone. The other is shadows, silence, and stories buried so deep that only whispers remain. The official histories will tell you about presidents, wars, and victories, but they will not tell you about the screams that echo in stairwells, the workers who vanish beneath the earth, or the black cat that prowls the Capitol when disaster is near. Those stories are left for the night, for the guards who patrol alone, for the families who never saw their loved ones again. Perhaps these mysteries will never be solved. Perhaps they are not meant to be, but their presence lingers in the chill that creeps across the mall when the crowds have gone. In the quiet of Dupont's alleys, in the echoing tunnels beneath the city where light barely dares to shine. Washington is not just a capital of power, it is a capital of secrets. And the deeper you look, the more the lines between history and nightmare begin to blur. So what do you believe? Are these only legends, exaggerated by fear and time? Or is there something more, something in the bones of the city itself, feeding on the tragedies that unfold here, watching us still from the corners of the night? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Share the theories you carry, the connections you see, the questions you want answered. And if you are new here, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell, because every week, we explore more stories that history has tried to forget, more mysteries that refuse to die. And as you close this video, remember, Washington, D.C. may look like marble and monuments by day, but when the sun goes down, it becomes something else entirely, a place where the past is never gone, and the dead are never truly silent.